Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth episode of Half-Ashed. My name is Craig Schneider. The gentleman across the computer glass for me, as you all know, is the smart one of the podcast, Kip Fisher. Howdy, my friend.
Good evening. How's it going today?
Oh man, I tell you, I think the fact that we're doing this show tonight is what saved me from from not being able to make it through the week.
Oh, there's at least one redeeming quality to this show, huh?
Well, that and the fact that I'm forcing myself to have more cigars every week. So let's say two redeeming qualities.
That's never a bad thing.
No, not at all. Although I don't mean to downplay what it is that you do for a living, but most of the time at about 7:30 in the morning when I've been working for an hour or so and I start considering pulling my hair out, I daydream about the fact that you're probably driving in a car with a cup of coffee, a cigar, 3 hours from your destination, another cigar in tow for you to light up immediately afterwards, and I grit my teeth and really don't ever want to talk to you again. But
well, you know, that is a fair number of days. That's a good summary of my mornings and evenings, but you know, there's all those other days where I'm working from home on the patio smoking cigars, so it makes you feel any better.
No, that's the bad part about your patio is it's in the sun part of the day, so geez, that's terrible.
My patio is covered and screened.
Shut up.
Pool about 15 feet over that way, but I can't get in it right now.
Oh, jeez. Next you're going to tell me your wife brings you pina coladas and fans you while you're working all day long.
No, it's a quiet house all day. She's at work.
Mm. Well, I guess maybe... Nah, we won't go there. So, besides the gentle ribbing here, how has your week been going? Anything going crazy?
Well, it was full of ugliness for work, but the cigars have been all right.
Good. You definitely sound like you're feeling a little bit better than last week. You've been able to smoke some then?
I am feeling considerably better than I was a week ago. Still not quite 100%, but I'm tasting fairly normally now and breathing just fine, so I'm in good shape.
We don't have Bob from CigarMedia.tv on tonight, so there's going to be nobody to fill in the lulls when I stop talking. So I'm looking forward to you chiming in more. now that your voice or your throat isn't sandpaper this week.
Yeah, maybe I can put a word or two out there.
Well, speaking of the first word or two, you want to share the information about our first Unbanded?
Sure, but it's an Unbanded, so there's not a great deal of information.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing.
It's first week here, if you can see that in the camera, or if you can just listen to this cigar if you're downloading the audio. It's my guess is, I don't know, what do you think, 5 by 50 or so?
5 by 54 on the button.
Wow.
At least both mine have been.
Mine does not appear that big, but I can't say that I measured it, so I'll take your word for it. This first week's Unbanded, we lined this up before we had any suggestions or submissions from listeners. So I walked into a local cigar shop and grabbed the first random customer standing around doing nothing and asked him to go in the humidor and grab us a few cigars. Hopefully the same cigar, and pull the bands off of them, take them to the cashier, and have her charge me for them. So that's kind of where we are. We don't know what it is yet. I have the bands in an envelope here, and we'll have the big reveal toward the end of the show.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, as I'm sure our listeners have been told a few times thus far. We've both been guest hosts previously on Dogwatch Cigar Radio, an old, now retired cigar podcast. And with that show, every week they would do an Unbanded, and I got to hand it to them. It was a heck of a commitment for them to be able to devote as much time to it as they did. But every show that I was on, that was absolutely my favorite segment. I'm really looking forward to this, not just because it's nice to be kind of humbled by a smoke and have to really concentrate on what you get out of it, but also because it's pretty fun to actually have other people enjoy it too. You know, it's listeners being involved in the show, it's listeners trying to play tricks on us, or our friends sending something in and wanting to make us look like fools on the air, and it's perfectly fine with me because I've had a blast with it for years now, and I look forward to continuing it on with you.
Yeah, I don't mind looking foolish if it involves getting a cigar to smoke.
I don't mind looking foolish no matter what. So,
If I minded it, it would I would have a much more depressing life.
so I see you've definitely lit up. You getting anything of note thus far?
Um, it's a little yeah, just a very tiny bit of spice on the first few minutes here. Um, I noticed on both of mine they were very veiny. I mean, just pronounced veins that were turned to the outside of the cigar, so you really can feel them. I didn't get much of anything off the wrapper for the aroma. At the foot it was a little more, maybe a kind of a bit of sweetness, a dark sweetness, almost like a really light or faint molasses, and I don't mean strong. I mean very very faint. Kind of that same sweetness, and still mild on the pre-light draw. But yeah, that's about it so far.
I well, I guess I'll intro this. We do, for those of you who don't know, we do a review every week that we post up on thecigarme.com.
Hey, you got it right.
I did get it right. I was practicing all week. So we put an epilogue review. It's basically something to kind of bookend the show. It kind of tidies up the loose ends because inevitably we're never able to devote I never feel like I'm able to devote as much time to talking about the cigar during the recording as I think a proper review would require. So I've kind of written some of the outline of what my review of this cigar is going to be, because we have had two samples of this. We were given two samples of these cigars each, and so I've smoked one of them already. I'm smoking the second tonight. So that rough outline has got a little bit of information to it that I'm already reading through and sensing similarities or differences, and one right off the bat is the appearance. While I do agree that this one that we're smoking today definitely has those outturned veins, like a wrapper that that they just almost rolled with the wrong side down. It looks in a little bit better condition and a little bit more oily than the last one. My first sample was about as dry of a wrapper as you could get, even though the cigar was incredibly well humidified, perhaps even over humidified. The wrapper had no sheen. It was very dark, naturally dark. I would call it a Maduro. And it just looked like a matte sheen to it. It was kind of interesting. This one definitely has more oils to it. It appears as if it's a much more beautiful, or it has a much more beautiful appearance. Although I'm not somebody who doesn't like veins. I don't know. I think they're kind of unique.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue with veins either. I just sometimes point them out just as something to be rattling on about.
No, I totally hear you there.
Both of mine, I made a little note there that it was very supple to the touch. It wasn't oily in that it had a sheen on the surface or anything, but it was just nice and smooth to the touch. And mine, I don't know, mine may not be as dark as yours. It would be somewhat questionable if I would call this a Maduro or not, but it could go that way. It actually looks a lot like. And I'm absolutely not making an assertion that this is a Fuente product, because it's not. It's just clearly not. But the coloration on the wrapper for both of mine had kind of a mottled look, the way that some of their sun-grown wrappers do when they have some. It seems like the high points are a little darker, like they've been. If you touch them, they darken a little bit. If there's something telegraphing underneath.
I see, this is why I absolutely love doing reviews in pairs. I love talking to somebody about it when you're doing it. Because you mentioned how supple your wrapper is, or both of your wrappers have been. And I'm sitting here on video, something that's going to live forever in the bowels of the internet. I'm rubbing this wrapper right now. And I don't think I've ever felt a wrapper like this. It's like feeling... I don't know how many of you have been to a factory when you've held up a hand of tobacco and taken a leaf out. and you've spread it thin to stretch it to see how transparent it was, to see how well processed it had been, or if there's still a lot of structure to it, whatever. It has that silky, slightly oiled feel. It's absolutely like this cigar. That's crazy. I can't believe how similar that is. That's a really cool. Observation you made there.
Yeah, the folks that are listening to this later and downloading are absolutely missing a visual effect of the video from you doing that.
I can't say I'm very upset about that, but go to the Cigar Federation's YouTube link, and then you can follow the. You can watch the video, the recording of it. How's that? There you go. Your Sig Fed hat.
Yeah, I got my Cigar Federation beanie or skull cap, whatever you want to call this thing, on tonight.
We gotta build you a smoking room inside there, so you don't have to worry about the weather variations.
Well, you know, you'd think in the state of Florida it wouldn't be this bad, but you know, tonight we're going to get down near freezing, and it's only about 50 right now, so it's not miserable yet. But I once again have moved my grill here as a wind breaker or a wind block, and I'm going to light that thing if it gets too cold tonight. Let the wind just blow the hot air across here.
Well, I have to say I have some pretty definitive's not the right word. I have some pretty opinionated comments about this cigar, both from last experience and from this one. And I'm noticing some differences. I definitely am. The first one that I had an extremely noticeable vanilla. It was vanilla extract. It wasn't like a vanilla bean or a vanilla ice cream or something with that aroma. It was that kind of sharp, pardon me, biting liquor almost with vanilla that you can get from the extract. And this one doesn't have that at all.
Like a volatile kind of feeling to the vanilla.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. I'm definitely getting a difference in this, although it's better, if that makes sense. This is much more of a refined, sweet baking. You know, I use that term a lot, but that sweet baking spice. But it definitely works for this. I'm getting a lot out of it, and I enjoy it.
I think the something that's similar, what you call baking spice, I grabbed a term from Dale Roush early on in my days of listening to Dog Watch. He called it tropical spice. And I picked up on that and have just kept using that terminology all this time because it works for me, because in my mind it's not the peppery kind of sharp or shrill spices that you would think of with pepper or really spicy foods, but some of the Caribbean cooking, the tropical spices and whatnot that they use there that come through. You know, there's kind of a sweetness to them, but it's tempered with a little bit of that kick, but not unpleasant at all.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Whenever I get like an allspice or a clove flavor in a cigar, I totally line up with that tropical spice description. This one's a little more dessert-like. It has that spiciness, but spice in the sense of, you know, like herbs and spices. This is sweet spice, like a vanilla, like a cinnamon. Like, I guess vanilla isn't spice, but like a cinnamon or a nutmeg, or even clove could be a sweet baking spice. An allspice, pumpkin pie spice, something like that. Like I'm getting that sweetness, that cinnamon nutmeg right now. I like it. It's very unique to me.
Yeah, I'm having a little different experience from the first one too, but I'm going to attribute most of that to the fact that I smoked this a couple of days ago when I still had a little congestion and maybe wasn't tasting exactly clearly.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
But it is noticeably more sweet and more of that kind of bright spice we were just talking about. And actually, this is almost minty, and I know you have used mint in description of cigars before, but I don't believe I ever have. I don't think I've ever said a cigar tasted minty to me, but that's what I have in my mind every time I draw from this.
Oh man, I get minty very infrequently, but I love it. Probably most notably was with the Tat Drac, the monster release in 2010, I think. Those cigars were just mint and spades for me, spearmint. I loved them. I think I was the only person in the country who liked the Drac, but man, it was great to me. If you're getting that, that's very lucky.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know that I've ever used that word in relation to a cigar before.
I'm definitely getting a lot of Nicaraguan flavors, and I'm now saying that it's Nicaraguan because it reminds me a little bit of some of these new school flavor profiles that we've gotten in the last 10 years or so. And because I'm definitely starting to get a little bit of a core of wood. I don't quite know what it is yet. It just kind of reminds me of a little bit of that jalapa flavor. It'll come to me. It's not very zingy in that kind of generic Nick Zing term, but it's reminiscent more of Nicaraguan rather than definitely so.
I don't know that I could put a country on it outside of that. These flavors we were just talking about and the appearance, it looks and tastes again like that. The sun-grown wrapper I was talking about with the Fuentes is an Ecuadorian wrapper, and that's what's in my mind when I get those bright flavors.
Well, I generally think that kind of a sweet spice, tropical spice, goes with Dominican tobacco. I've experimented a fair bit and did a series of all Dominican cigars, and I think the last 5 episodes of Dog Watch I did them. They were Pro Cigar banded cigars that I reviewed on the show, and they really opened my eyes in a little bit more detail to some of the benefits of Dominican. And so one of the things that I've really grown to love is that they truly have the best example of the sweet tropical spice that I'll get from some tobaccos. And this cigar has some of that. And so I could go with you and think that this isn't a puro. I think that it could definitely be a very well-rounded blend from a number of countries. And I agree with you. I had thought that this might have even been Ecuadorian Habano wrapper when I looked, just how some of the, what I call capillary veins, how they look, and the texture of this leaf kind of reminds me of that. Extremely silky.
Yeah.
But,
I'm enjoying it, though, and actually quite a bit more than I did the first one, and I'll get into that a little later. I had a little bit of a minor fiasco toward the end of the first one, but so far this one's great.
Yeah, I also had some pretty strong opinions as that other one finished, so I think it's a good time to maybe say a TBD or a to be continued TBD. Now I look silly. To be continued. You want to bust into some of the news items, and we can talk about this cigar on the backside?
Now you look silly?
Come on. I don't do a show with Bob because he always teases me. Come on.
Yeah, it's my job. It's what I do.
And you do it well.
Okay. The first little item we have there in the show notes that we were going to talk about was just a minor update or snippet or something that hadn't occurred to me. We got an email from Dan Crouch from D.C., longtime Dog Watch listener and just an all-around good dude. But just pointing out that Villiger had already kind of been down the same road as Swisher in what we were talking about last week, and in that they have traditionally made, mass-produced, machine-made, machine-rolled cigars, and also have that, I think it's the 1888 line that is a hand-rolled, handmade product. And, and apparently they do that successfully. So, I'm interested to see how Swisher carries that off, or pulls that off, or carries it out. And I don't know. I guess I'm remaining a little skeptical of what the final result will be, but it'll be interesting to watch anyway.
No, I don't know. I got Dan's email as well this week, and it got me thinking a bit about it. And I don't know what the exact order of how things occurred, but probably the most well-known premium cigar manufacturer that has had a lot of ties to cigarettes, or let's just say the machine-made market, and be a little bit more general. What about La Aurora?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they made, I don't remember where we heard this. It may have been from Bob. Something like 1 million cigarettes a day was their production at one time when they made Marlboro for the Dominican. I mean, that's obviously that's got to be their huge, or had to have been their huge moneymaker. And so to think about their entrance into the world of premium cigars, although I know it's been a much longer period than.
But, yeah, and I think a lot of that was it ran concurrently, didn't they? They've been around for over 100 years.
Yeah, 108.
So they had a storied history with both products. I guess what struck me odd with Swisher is that they are such a behemoth already, and they're picking up and establishing a premium division with a product that is not typically the size or it's not as unwieldy as a Philip Morris or some huge production of product.
Yeah, it's certainly a valid point. Probably a better way for me to have drawn similarities between the two is just the fact that they're both now going to be involved in a market which is just so clearly not as smart of a business venture as their other main market. So, yeah. Or what was at one time La Aurora's main market. So it's an interesting thing that, yeah, there may be a few more similarities than were immediately apparent when we discussed this last week for the first time.
Right.
But either way, as promised, we'll certainly all keep an eye on it for you guys and let you know more as it becomes available. I'm just going to look into it more because I'm intrigued more than anything.
Yeah, same here. It doesn't really impact me one way or the other. You know what? I'm willing to try most any kind of what I would call a premium cigar that comes down the pike just to try it and see what it's like. But, but it'll be fun to watch anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. Mm-hmm.
Moving along to the next item, we have one small legislative update that, again, I just toss these in there because I sit and I see a story and I'm just dumbfounded sometimes at what's going on around the country, and specifically California. They seem to have a knack for it.
We call that being Californian here in the Midwest.
Yeah. But there are small communities and pockets around the state of California that have already done this. But Assemblyman Mark Levine, he's a San Rafael Democrat, has introduced a bill, California Assembly Bill 746, that would ban and prohibit smoking in multi-unit housing, which means you can't smoke in your own home if you're a renter or you live in a duplex or an apartment or any kind of rental, and any kind of, like it says, multi-unit housing. And several things jumped out at me with this story. One of them was that include owner-occupied residences, which means that the people that own the building, if they're living there, are impacted by this same law. And it would prohibit any smoking in any of the housing there. And I mentioned, we were talking a little bit earlier that this has apparently been written specifically to address tobacco smoking and does not impact marijuana smoking at all, which I'm not making a judgment on the marijuana thing. That's not my thing, but I don't get it. How is that any better?
There's a whole slew of this that I don't know, that just kind of gets me going. I mean, we were talking about it, as you had mentioned, a little bit earlier on, and I just changed the subject. Hey, sorry, Kip, I'm going to have to not talk about this. We'll have to get into it on the show, because it just makes me angry. I mean, okay, we can all be objective here and say that the root of this, or the intention, is so that way one person's actions don't negatively affect another's. That I can see someone expressing, but this isn't a resolution to that. A resolution to that would be, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't perhaps speak about something when I'm perhaps at my wit's end and responding emotionally here. It's just a shame that we're getting to this, that now we're going to be controlled in our own private residences from doing something that's not illegal. Smoking is not illegal. If done by adults in with our own money, a product that we've purchased, what gives you the right to tell me that I can't do it in my home?
Yeah,
it's just...
And you know, to make this particular bill a little more unnecessary, the landlords and owners of all rental properties in the state of California already have the authority to prohibit smoking in their units. I mean,
yeah.
And this bill just makes it a state law. And by the way, it does not specify who's going to enforce the law. He just said it would be up to local jurisdictions to figure it out.
As a local jurisdiction, I say that it's the state police's job. Or I guess California doesn't have state police, do they? They have highway patrol.
Yeah, but you know, this guy believes that damaging amounts of secondhand smoke can go through your outlets and pipe chases and ventilation and light fixtures. He even names in the article, and I was like, good grief. I don't get it. But.
No, I don't either. I'll tell you what, though, this is the absolute reason why we, as cigar smokers, passionate individuals, and if you're listening to this podcast, that's you. I mean, it just is. You're not going to listen to this podcast unless you're somebody who is doing whatever you can to soak up and to associate themselves with premium cigar information, knowledge, herfs, you know, having a conversation with your buddies, you know. If you are one of those people, you should support the Cigar Rights of America. And I think that this is the perfect example of what they will fight for, to make sure that justice, I should say, to make sure that injustice isn't carried out. And this is injustice, I think. I truly believe it.
Yeah, and the you know, I don't live in California, but the scary thing to me is that as California goes, so follows New York and the rest of the country.
That's a very good point. And
we've seen that over and over and over.
You know, you mentioned a couple times about rental properties and such, but this isn't just rental properties. I mean, where I live and what I do on a daily basis with my profession, I mean, it's very common to have very high-end attached housing. I mean, yes. You know, think of brownstones in New York, in you know, on the west side. I mean, they're 3 stories tall and 4,000 square feet, and they just share a wall with their neighbor, but they're multi-million-dollar residences. It's not uncommon to have that in numerous places. This could be a duplex, a townhome with 3 or 4 units, a condo. I mean, how many people have condos in California because it's so difficult to afford property and so expensive to own your own home? I mean, this has a huge impact on people, even if they do own their own residence.
Absolutely, yeah. I did not intend to limit that to rentals. It is any multi-unit housing. Like I said, all of those other instances would have the same application.
Well, it's a shame, and I just think that the CRA is there with our support to fight this fight for us. As a matter of fact, it seems to me that you and I had a conversation at the Dog Watch Herf over summer that I needed to talk to you about renewing my membership.
Yes, we can do that.
I think I need to do that. I'll admit I've been a little less than pleased at times personally with the CRA, but it's just been because the telemarketers that they've hired to cold call me to try to renew accounts that were discontinued. I've had multiple accounts in my name because someone spelled it incorrectly when trying to renew. I think I've had 3 accounts, at least 2, but I think 3. And it's because of misspelling, and so it would come to like Greg Schnuder. Another one was Craig Z H, NYDER or something like that. Like, completely butchered my name. And then there was the one that was the legitimate one spelled properly. So I was a little pissy with all of this. So my other two accounts, my two failed accounts, have run out. I believe I only have my main Craig S. Schneider CRA account, and I'd like to renew that. And I'll pledge on air today. I'm definitely going to do that, and you and I can talk about exchanging whatever financial information I need to do, or you can give me the guidance how I need to do it.
You can do that right on their website, or with any of those pamphlets at your local shops. The website is cigarrights.org. You can do it all online right there, safe and securely. You throw my name on there as your referral, and you'll get a couple extra cigars out of it, too.
Kip Fisher, Fisher, or is there a C in there?
No, there's no C. And you could even put ambassador number 169 as well, and it'll get there. And then once that process is through, go ahead. This is for everybody else out there. I'll know when you do it, but send me an email that you've done so, and once that process is through, I'll send you a couple of cigars out of my own personal humidor, and you'll get a couple from CRA as well. So you're going to get 4 cigars out of a $35 membership. So, you know.
Can I pick what cigars I want out of your humidor?
you can pick from the 2 I mailed to you.
It sounds like a plan. I'll do that.
But yeah, you can cigarrights.org and go straight to their website. If you come to the cigarme.com, I have a tab across the top up there that you can drop down. I think it's like the contact and information tab. You drop that down, and there's a CRA promotion. You click on that page, and it'll get you there. And that won't be processed through me or my site. It goes directly to Cigar Rights. They handle all the financial data and whatnot. So,
well, next hot button item that we can kind of start breezing through here is a few new cigar releases that are coming up here from all over the world. We've got, boy, it's looking like Cuba's coming out with a Petite number 2 from Monte Cristo. Monte Cristo number 2 is probably one of the most iconic Cuban cigars out there today. And for them to come out with a shorter version of it, unfortunately, I don't think we have Vitola specifics, but I'd guess they'd probably be something similar to the, I think they came out with a Romeo Petite Bellicoso, which was about 4.5 by 52 a few years back. I'm going to guess they'll be somewhere in that range, slightly smaller than a Robusto, but still that same 52 ring.
Yeah, and I wanted to credit Half Wheel with that. I saw I don't recall it, a Rogue tweet or Facebook post or something that they had posted that release that was happening, and the picture it appeared to be just a shorter, smaller version of the number 2 that most people are already familiar with, and it just said that their aim was to provide the same smoking experience, the same profile, the same enjoyment in a smaller size that might not take quite as much time as the normal number 2.
Well, they as in Cuba Tobacco and Habanos have been collaborating to put some serious effort into the Monte Cristo, the Monte Cristo number 2 recently. There was the Monte Gran Reserva. The regular production Monte 2s have been pretty well received recently, and then now this Petite number 2. Just somebody who, from someone who isn't afraid to have an opinion about a cigar. If you're of mind to go out and acquire cigars like this, I might make the recommendation that if you pick up the original release, the initial runs out of some good high mark factories, that these Petite 2s, I would wager that they are going to be pretty epic. First month's release from some good factories, I think. Seek them out. You will be well rewarded. That's my quick tip for the day. How's that?
Cool.
Why don't you bust out some of this EPC info that you got a little bit of a personal tie to?
Yeah, EP Carrillo this past fall opened their. Well, wait, it's not their they don't own the shop, but they collaborated with a shop back in my hometown, just outside at Knoxville, Tennessee, actually, Smoking Joe's, and they opened the first EP Carrillo Lounge this past fall, and this week, yesterday, Thursday, the 28th, depending on when you're listening, opened or launched their lounge exclusive cigar, which was kind of a neat thing. I'm a big fan of EP Carrillo's work. I like the cigars just about across the board, but that original line, the short runs that came out, I just love them. I still got a few of them around, and man, that's a phenomenal smoke.
Are those short runs? Those short runs are in our Cigars of the Week. That was one of your 12 cigars, wasn't it?
That was the 2011.
Oh, it was the 2011. Okay.
Once again, a fantastic cigar. I was not as big a fan of the 2012s. It was like a hybrid cigar of two other existing lines, but the earlier short runs I like a lot. But this lounge exclusive, for now anyway, is just a single Vitola. It's a 6x54. I did not see a picture of that. I don't recall if it was a torpedo or just a Parejo. I don't know. Brazilian Habano Maduro wrapper, Nicaraguan binder, and Nicaraguan and Dominican filler. Looks like it's going to retail, full retail, going to be $8.49 for singles, and for the time being, it's only available there at Smoking Joe's. And they're not a sponsor of ours. I've met the guys that own it, and actually, I had a nephew that at one time worked for that shop. He no longer does, but they're at SmokingJoesTobacco.com. I don't believe they do any online sales, but I'm sure if somebody really wanted them, they can find a phone number on that website somewhere and get in contact with them. But it sounds like an interesting cigar. I'm going to have to hit my nephew up, who, like I said, doesn't work there anymore, but he still lives back in Tennessee, and see if I can get him to send me a couple of those to try.
I like a lot of the APC stuff. I was lucky enough to spend some time in the Dominican. Man, I think it was 2 years ago now. As a matter of fact, I know it was 2 years ago. Funny story with how I know. I'll get into that later. I know it was just about 2 years ago that I was there, and Ernie Carrillo was he was in the newer factory that he's opened up, and that he had opened up just shortly before our visit, and I was 100% blown away by the professionalism, the education, the devotion, and the respect that they showed me and the few other people that that were there on the cigar tour that we were on with a good friend of mine, Colin Ganley, cigartourism.com. Highly recommend his trips because they just opened doors that would never have been able to be opened for normal fans of cigars, such as this. We went to Ernie's factory. It was after hours. The manager, the factory manager, and all the individual department managers stayed, demonstrated what their different departments did, what they were responsible for, treated us all incredibly respectfully. It nearly insisted that we stay and smoke cigars with them. They wanted our opinion, and they just made me feel as if we were guests more than we were people on a tour. And that says a lot, because it's not their name on the cigar brand, on the cigar band, excuse me. It was them as employees putting in extra time to make sure that people understood what they were so passionate about. That was spectacular for me, because if I didn't know who Ernie was or what he looked like, I mean, I certainly could have believed the gentleman who led the tour was him. He was so passionately involved in what it was. It was a pretty cool experience. Great people are involved in the making of these cigars, no doubt.
Yeah, that's neat when you see employees that have that much buy-in to the company and appreciation for the product and what they're doing and their work. It really does make for a much better final product, because you know they care about what they're doing.
I mean, I've been to a lot of factories too, as I know you have. I mean, this was abnormal dedication, not in a creepy way or anything, but I mean, it was just so um, it was welcome to see people be as passionate in giving as we are in receiving what it is that they make. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, very. Yeah, right. And next, I guess, item or cigar to be released, the L'Atelier is launching a couple more cigars relatively soon.
I was going to let you jump on that one because I have trouble pronouncing that every time.
It seems to me you didn't do too bad of a job with the rebanding of the Ezra Zion.
The
That
Jean.
yeah, that French name. You didn't sound like too much of a redneck when you said that.
Yeah, just pretend I know what I'm doing. Yeah,
uh,
they're gonna in actually in just a couple of weeks, mid-March, launching the Lat 46. I didn't see any dimensions on that, but presumably, if it follows suit with the others, it should be a 46 ring. Um, it appeared to be in the picture anyway. I don't know, 5.5, 6 inches long.
Probably, if it's anything like what Pete's had his hand in his other cigars, I'm sure it's a 5 5/8 by 46.
Yeah, and it's going to be a very similar blend to the others, and I believe almost identical, with the exception that the leaves they're going to use for the wrapper, while coming from the same plant, will be from a higher priming. So they'll be, I'm assuming, a little more robust, maybe a little darker in color. And speaking of darker in color, the other cigar that's coming up late this spring, I want to say, May, somewhere around May was the date. Going to have a L'Atelier Maduro. And I really like all three of those first Vitolas they put out, and I got to guess I'm going to like these two as well.
Two things. One, bravo. That was a professional transition from one cigar to the next. Speaking of darker leaves, bravo, well done. And secondly, not too bad of a job with that pronunciation there.
Yeah, even a blind hog finds an acorn every once in a while.
Yep, you definitely are a redneck. Well, I skipped over another item up here that we should probably let people know about, although it's not nearly as fun as these other cigar releases and items we've been mentioning. But yeah, folks, it's that time of a year. It's price increase time. We know Fuente has already recently had their increase, and Alec Bradley is starting to notify people that it's going to be coming next month. So just be on the lookout. It might not be a bad time, given that it's tax season and all. If you got a return coming, maybe set aside a couple bucks and grab something before it goes up a few percent.
Yeah, and that's pretty normal, February through April, as we see a lot of price increases. And that's just, I don't know, it's not that it's an industry standard. It just turns out that's usually when most people are updating their pricing to reflect, increased production costs or whatever from the previous year.
Yeah.
Like you said, Fuente just had a price increase. I haven't really seen that on the shelf yet, but I know it's coming. I know it has happened at the wholesale level. So as stock starts to dwindle with retailers and they're buying and replacing it at the new prices, we'll start seeing a little higher prices. And I guess it'll be about the same with Alec Bradley. Their increase is coming April the 1st. I don't believe it's going to be a large increase, but it will be pretty much across the board outside of a couple of new lines that they just put out. Those prices won't change. So by the end of April, I imagine they'll all be we'll be seeing some higher prices.
Not to I guess cut our knees off here just as we're getting started with this show, but do you have many Alec Bradleys that you think are high quality sticks?
Well, I don't know that I have a beef with Alec Bradley. I wouldn't say they're not. I can't think of very many that I go out and buy just to sit and enjoy.
That's probably, I probably should have worded it closer to what you're saying, but I can't think of a single Alec Bradley that I've smoked that I want to go out and smoke again.
Yeah, I don't have an aversion to them, and I won't say that I never buy them. I would regularly pick them up, but I buy a lot of cigars. So, I thinking back, I did not especially like the black market when it first came out. It had that oddball flavor, which Bob McDuffie explained on one of the Dog Watch shows, that there was something to do with an adhesive they were using or whatever, and they changed that. And I went back and tried it again, and I liked the cigar much better. And to this day, I still will pick up a black market every once in a while.
You know, I know we've got one more item here to talk about, and it's an item that involves a pretty good guy in the cigar media world. But before we get into that, I just got a really unique flavor off of this cigar, and it's one I don't think I've ever gotten from a cigar before, but it just puts me back into places of my childhood. I just tasted the smell of acorns.
That's because I talked about the hogs and acorns.
It might very well be. I just remember, as a kid, my grandmother had a house in Arkansas we'd always go to, and I remember there being acorns all over the place. At least I think it was Arkansas. Just all over the place. And whenever we would be there, it was like they were always kind of starting to have that semi-fermented, just piercing aroma when you're playing out in the yard or something. It just really reminded me. This cigar just really reminded me. It brought me back to that time.
Huh.
I just thought that was strange. I'm probably middle of the halfway through the cigar, middle of the second third.
Do you think it's acorns or the oak leaves that would be associated with the trees that you smell?
I don't really remember there being a lot of oak leaves on the ground during these memories. But I mean, I was probably 7 or 8, so it could very well be the leaves. That would certainly make more sense for having a little bit of moisture on them and getting an aroma.
Huh. Yeah, the acorns themselves are very tannic. I don't know if you've ever tasted one. We can't really digest them. But they are edible if you leach all the tannins out of them and cook it away, but that's odd. I don't know that I've ever used the word acorn with a cigar either.
Well, why don't you take the reins on this last item here for Mr. Cooper?
Sure. Last week we talked a little bit about IPCPR and their earlier proposal to have a consumer day, and then subsequently going back and tabling or jettisoning that idea. And Cigar Coop, Will Cooper, he does a blog called Cigar Coop, and it's cigar-coop.com. He just a couple hours ago posted up an editorial with his thoughts about the tabling of that idea, and he actually put out a really well thought out stream of consciousness, or some ideas on why he thinks it's not a good idea to have a consumer day. If anybody wants to go check that out, he makes several good points. I can hit the bullet points here really quickly. His first point was that this trade show is specifically held to conduct business, to conduct sales. It's not a consumer electronics show kind of thing. It's not something to showcase the product to the public. It's to showcase the product to retailers to buy, to present to the public, and it undoubtedly would create some diversions from conducting that business.
Let me stop you before you get to point number 2. Mm-hmm. Couldn't that be perhaps a slippery slope to media members not being allowed to attend either?
It is, and he actually makes that point later in part of the article, that he has been there as a retailer and as the media, and just the waters that have to be navigated just through media, that adding a few hundred more people would just further confuse the issue. And media passes are few and far between at the show. It would not be an injection of there are not 500 media members there.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall correctly, I didn't catch 2012 numbers. I think there were only 15 internet media folks at the show in 2011. So 15 versus 500 500 is a big difference.
I do agree with that, and I will say that on some of the previous years that I've been, prior to them implementing some of the more recent stringent requirements on internet media members, there were quite a few more than 15. I mean, I'd say you were probably closer to that 500 number than 15, maybe 150, 200.
Wow.
They're in 2010 especially. Was it 2010? Yeah, it was 2010. There was almost an outcry. I remember being around retailers and having them state that it seems like there's more media members than there are retailers.
Hmm.
So,
I was not at that show, but I did watch all the hubbub take place online.
yeah, it definitely did take place. There's no doubt.
Yeah. I'm looking through his article here. He points out that adding consumers feeds the problem of consumers on the show floor, and that's something they have stated they don't want. Despite the fact that it happens every year, consumers are not the object of holding this show. And although I know firsthand of people that go to the show, have gone to the show, that are not retailers. They come because they're good customers of a particular retailer who bring them. Last year one guy even publicly posted online that he went on a ticket that his retailer had auctioned off.
Yeah.
He bought the ticket. And that's something that IPCPR has specifically said they don't want to happen. And so that was just another thing he pointed out. It adds extra cost to the manufacturers who are going to have to, basically add another day to what they're doing, and that's just a big cost. The show is not an inexpensive thing to carry out. They spend thousands of dollars setting up a booth and adding a day to the time that they have all of their staff on hand there would be a significant cost. And of course, the last thing, and I'm absolutely not doing this article justice. You really should go check it out. It's a good bit of insight, a good bit of perspective he's put into it. But it also has an impact on the retailers who are going to have that extra interference, and not being able to buy at certain times of the show. It is what it is. Good idea, bad idea, I don't know. But it was an interesting read for me.
As I had mentioned earlier, I've been rather busy this week, today included. We're actually doing this show later than normal tonight, just because I have been so wrapped up today. But I guess thus I haven't had an opportunity to read that, but I'm extremely intrigued by it. I've kind of been on the other side of this fence, where my initial reaction has been that I thought it would be beneficial to have just a general admission day, perhaps, tickets for sale, but anyone could purchase those tickets. I thought that might be a way to put the consumer more in touch with the manufacturer and the retailer, but in a professional setting. We don't really have that. We have Big Smoke. We have events at cigar shops. We have the chat tweet up. We've got a number of other things similar to that. I mean, I know that there's different festivals all around the country, but it's more. I don't want to use a term that sounds so negative, like a clique, but each of those little organizations or gatherings really have a very specific focus of people who end up attending those events. And I think that a public IPCPR day would be a way to really ask of the public, come experience this, but participate in a professional manner. Let's not just treat this like a let's get drunk and smoke free cigars event. It would need to be handled, and I believe that it would be handled in more of a professional manner. Now, as I said, this is just off the top of my head what I think would be a unique thing for the industry that it could benefit from, though I don't know if it's outweighed by the negatives at this point either. It's just I'll be interested in reading Bill's perspective on this, just because I would like to really have a little bit more of an educated or informed opinion that I can move forward with.
Yeah, and he wraps up the article with proposing that maybe it would be a better solution if IPCPR just worked with some of those big events that already take place to make them a little more expo-like. You know, if they want to have, you know, innovative booth setups, he says, and more new product showcasing, that kind of thing that consumers would be interested in, that maybe there's some kind of middle ground where at other events like the Big Smoke or the Great Smoke, or he mentions the Texas Cigar Festival, make those things be a little more like a trade show, but still consumer friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a fine line between what would be more like IPCPR and what wouldn't, and I think that it would be pretty difficult to change the feel of an event if it's not IPCPR, to bring it more in line with what a professional expo would be like. I think that would be pretty difficult, but you know, either way, chocolate and vanilla, people have different opinions. I'll look forward to checking out what he's got. I hope he can change my mind. Well, we don't really have much information to share on this Unbanded besides what it is that we're gonna reveal flavor-wise. You want to kind of head up the second, third flavor thoughts?
Yeah, the for lack of a better word, the tonal quality of the flavors has stayed mostly the same, but it is a little more drying on the palate, you know, almost astringent, and that kind of brings me to the first experience I had with this cigar. And this one, I'm already further along than I was before this happened on the first one, but it got just almost shrill. I mean, it was really bitter. You know, it was kind of a woodsy flavor in that first one, but you know, I by the time I got into this portion I'm at right now with this one, and I'm going to say I have maybe 2 inches left of the 5, it had just gotten so bitter that I put it down and didn't come back to it. I didn't appreciate it at all, but you know, again, I had a tainted palate that day, I'm sure, but I'm having a much better experience with this one.
Well, it's interesting. I in my review that I have both items that you've just mentioned. I talk about in a different light than what you than how you're expressing it, but I know that they're the exact experience. So the first thing is I talk about in the second, third that I'm starting to get a combination of flavors, a salty breadiness that's going along with the baking spice, and that baking spice I'm classifying as nutmeg. And nutmeg to me can absolutely have a sharpness and a stringent characteristic to it if it's freshly ground nutmeg, not just powdered stuff, but you actually have the nut. It can absolutely have that astringent quality that you're talking about, where it's just almost biting. So I'm picking that up, and it's absolutely carrying through with the flavors that had been in the cigar from the first third. It's just transitioning just ever so slightly to pick up that edge. So it's unique that we kind of are looking at the same issue, but from opposite sides, how we're describing it. And then secondly, this will get into how I finished the cigar the first time through, but I really am going to draw a contrast, to last week's Cuenca. The 5 anniversary was a cigar that, although it was, as I've talked about, it filled with hard flavors, the more pronounced woody, peppery, smoky flavors that are much more savory and characteristic. That Cuenca never got to the point where it tainted my palate, where it was almost too much. It was too full. It left a coating on my tongue. The finish was too long. It never got to that point. This cigar, although it's not filled with hard flavors, it's much softer flavors. It absolutely is making me feel like I need to take a tongue scraper and just start over. Like I need to hit the reset button with my palate so that way I can continue tasting this cigar as it goes. I mean, for a 5-inch long cigar, I'm 2.5 inches into it. I mean, I just feel like my tongue's gone and fought a 12-round title bout. There's just been my tongue and my soft palate are just, they're beat to hell right now because of how much this cigar has gunked them up.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not so bad tonight, but the first one got that bitterness. What I'm calling bitterness was kind of an ashy taste.
Mm-hmm.
Just what you're describing, it just an ashiness in my mouth that didn't really go away.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. As I say, I think it's the exact same thing. We're just describing it differently, no doubt.
Yeah, that's why there's two of us.
Absolutely. Well, so you had any other cigars this week you want to talk about?
I had a few, some good, some not so good. I went back and smoked the other two of the stuffed turkey from Viaje that I mentioned the first last week, and that I couldn't really tell them apart. I was stupid enough not to put a label on which was which because the bands are the same. There's the light and the dark. And I had a better experience, but I still don't think I would go back at $10 a pop and get more of them, especially knowing that there are other Viajes that I like much better. And I mentioned in the notes there that if faced with the choice, I would take a late harvest, either of the shotgun shell releases they do. Those are tiny little cigars, but they're great for what they are. And the Skull and Bones series, I have so much trouble keeping up with Viaje anymore. All the different names and numbers and all the assignments they make since they made the change to be an all small batch all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I have enjoyed most of what I found in the Skull and Bones series. Going down the list here.
Well, actually, I'm not going to let you go down the list. I want to ask you a question here. You know I like rat holes. Come on. You mentioned that you're not sure you'd reach for that either of those the stuffed turkey, white meat, dark meat, Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving brunch, whatever cigars those are. Is it just me, and is it me being a pretentious little jerk that when I have a cigar like that, I don't hesitate to put it out early, to just let it go. I don't know. I could see both sides of the story. I'll put a cigar out, or I'll let a cigar go out if it's not giving me pleasure, because I don't need it as a drug delivery system like a cigarette smoker. So that's one side of it. But then secondly, I'll go find something else that I like. I know that I'm lucky, and I've got a lot of cigars here that I can smoke on any given day. And I don't mean to make this a monetary discussion, but if I have right here, let me grab something from my ashtray. This is a Churchill, and it's a Churchill with an inch smoked out of it because it was terrible, and I didn't want to continue smoking it. And this is a cigar that I think a lot of people would cry blasphemy, if they knew what it was. And the point is that there's no reason for me to smoke if I'm not going to enjoy it. And I don't know if it's just me who's saying, look, okay, so I spent $12 on something I'm not going to like. I'm not going to smoke it out of spite. That's not what cigars are about.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'm, like I said, a pretentious little weenie who will do that, or am I in the minority there, and most people would just kind of give it up or bite the bullet and not give it up. I don't know. What's your thought?
No, I don't think you're being a pretentious little weenie at all. I do the exact same thing. It's when you get into a cigar and you're not enjoying it, and it's just like you said, what's the point in continuing to smoke it? You either put it down and be a little bothered that you spent $10 on a cigar you couldn't smoke or didn't want to smoke, or you smoke it the rest of the way down and you're still disappointed because you bought a $10 cigar you just didn't like and it was no good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't think your feeling about that cigar is going to be the same. It's just you didn't like it and you smoked it, or you didn't like it and you put it down.
I've done a fair share of panel tasting. I've been fortunate enough to be invited by a manufacturer to review test blends. And so there's a side of me that says, No, smoke the cigar, get through the phases that the cigar has, because there will be segments that you like and don't like. Um, pardon me. And I have to admit, I smoked another cigar this week um, that I soldiered through the first half inch, pardon me, and was met with an absolutely glorious reward. But that was a cigar that I was purposefully asked to review, to provide some thoughts on for the development of a blend. So that's why I continued on. So I can see someone saying, well, gee, but what if that cigar is going to open up in the second, third? And that is a good reason to stick with it, no doubt about it. But I'll find myself just saying, you know, half an hour of bad just isn't worth an hour of good. In most cases in my life, if it's things that I'm knowledgeable about or educated on, like cigars, I know that I can give up that cigar and I can go find another one which will give me an hour and a half of good. You know, I don't know. I don't need to sacrifice a little bit to get a little bit better. And it's, you know, I've taken some ribbing for it, and I know my time when I definitely don't do that. But if it's me smoking for me, I'm not afraid to let a cigar go out, and I think it rubs people the wrong way sometimes. But sorry.
No, I'm right there with you. I couldn't agree more. I'll do the exact same thing.
Good. Half-assed, the pretentious snob podcast. No. I'll let you go on now. That was just a little rat hole I wanted to get your opinion on. Now I don't feel so bad about myself.
Well, I have, these are unintentionally kind of in an order here. I had 4 cigars I wanted to mention this week. 2 of them were not my kind of cup of tea, and the other 2 I enjoyed quite a bit. And the next one that I didn't particularly care for was an Esteban Carreras, and I have had their 187 before, and I really like that cigar. It was one of the cigars given out last year at an event we have in Tampa called the Cigar Bash, and I liked it a lot. And during that 12, 14 months since that event, I've bought several more. It's not something I keep a box of around all the time, but I do like them. But this one, it was actually given to me by a friend at a cigar shop. It's called the Chupacabra, which I thought, if you call your cigar the goat sucker, it's kind of a clue maybe. But one thing that didn't impact my enjoyment of the cigar, but it was something I noticed, was it was a big size. And I don't typically reach for this was a double Corona. It was a 7x54, and that's just a little. I'm a Corona, Robusto, maybe a Toro kind of guy sometimes, but it's a Nicaraguan Puro. Which I love Nicaraguan tobacco. The flavor was okay. It was pretty straightforward. Woodsy, a little bit of spice, but not overwhelming. But the thing that really killed it for me, it was just rolled incredibly tight, and it was so hard to draw through that it was giving me a headache, because that's what happens to me when a cigar is too tight. And it looked, I smoked a little more than the one you held up there on your camera, but not a whole lot more. I just had to put it down, and it wasn't worth a headache to me.
I got to do it again. I got to go down another rat hole. I've got a friend of mine who has access to a CT scanner, and he's kind of bounced some ideas around. Hey, what do you think would be fun to experiment with a cigar and one of these scanners? Can you think of anything that would be kind of cool? And one of the items that we came up with was, why don't you scan a cigar with a perfect draw, and then if you have the same cigar that has a very tight draw, scan that as well, and see if you can get some sort of variation as to what they're looking like, how that tight one has the chambers closed off, and how the properly drawing cigar perhaps is open, or what those channels are, or how they continue through. So it's just kind of going into this, like it. I totally get that a tight draw is just such a pain in the rear. It's it can really ruin a cigar that you otherwise might have some enjoyment from. But I don't know. I just thought that was kind of a cool thing to share. I didn't know if anybody else had ever done that.
No, I don't know that anybody's ever done that, but that's cool. And just sitting here thinking, it would be really neat if there were some apparatus out there that you could watch the lamellar flow of the wind go through a cigar. You could see where and what helped, the draft of a cigar, the draw of a cigar, and what hindered it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had numerous discussions about this, little snippets. Is there a way with the CT scan? Because we're not experts with it whatsoever. It's just essentially something that.
Wait a minute. Who has access to a CT scanner that's not an expert?
Well, his access is through a very close friend of his who would allow him to do something like this. So I'm not speaking to the operator. I'm speaking with someone who is willing to share results or at least brainstorm ideas. So I'll clarify that. So the thought was, I mean, there's been a lot of other things. We didn't know if maybe you could isolate individual components, continuous components, like you could look at a cigar to then see the wrapper leaf, the binder leaf, and then the individual filler leaves all separately. You could almost do a deconstructed view of that cigar, take those components apart. I thought that would be really killer if you could do something like that to try to analyze what the characteristics of each of those leaves were. If that CT would allow you to get down to the level of looking at density or looking at thickness or size to see if you could tell Ligero from Seco to, I mean, even just generic Velato in there. I mean, if you could just kind of isolate and get rid of that and see what flavor components or bits of tobacco brought flavor components to the blend. I mean, the options here are just endless, and it's such a cool thing to play with for a tobacco geek like me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we may have gone completely over the cliff of cigar geekdom right there.
Well, anybody who's a listener who's got any cool ideas or any practical knowledge of what you could do with a CT scan, shoot us an email, either Kip or I. I think it would be kind of a cool thing to, if possible, maybe follow up on. I don't know. Maybe not, but
hey, it's at least worth a try.
Well, anyways, I promise I won't interrupt you on this one.
No, not a bother at all, man. I'm all about rat holes, and that was an epic one right there.
That might have been a tunnel.
Well, moving on to a couple of cigars I did like this week, and one of them in particular was a nice surprise, and this one is for the guy we mentioned earlier, for DC. He's always on the lookout for a good bargain stick, and I had a Tabacos Baez. It's a Pepin Garcia cigar. It's a mix filler cigar, and you can get these for about $2 a piece, and they're, I guess, what do you call them, a Cuban sandwich? They're like 70-30 long and short filler.
Yeah.
But man, it's all Nicaraguan tobacco with a Habano wrapper. It's all the information I saw on it, and it smoked great. It didn't fall in my lap. It didn't fall apart. I didn't get bits of tobacco all in my mouth. Pleasant flavors. The burn was perfect. And it's, a lot of wood kind of flavors. Some of that tropical spice we mentioned earlier. I imagine that will vary from one cigar to the next. But anytime you throw short filler into the mix, but for $2, it was a great cigar.
Can I go down one rat hole? It's a short rat hole. It's not very deep.
Absolutely.
Can you explain what a Habano wrapper is? Is that like a funny bathroom?
Yeah, I'm about to cut this hangout off.
There's my redneck buddy.
Yeah.
All right, I told you it was a short one.
Let's see. Back on track. Suitable fun making has been had.
Hey, just wait until I tell everybody that you're the old man of the show. Hit 40 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, you've already done that.
I know, but it's fun to mention again.
Yeah, but I'm still 40. Yeah, Kurt Kindle's 724. I've actually smoked quite a few of these in the past several months, and will continue to do so. I've been buying the Robusto. It's just a great cigar. It's not one that if you hang out in the Twitter world, the Twitter cigar world, you do hear a fair amount of chatter about it, but it's not one you see on the shelf of every store you walk into. But man, I love these cigars. Just a really nice. I called it a sweet oak kind of flavor, and it kind of dances around almost with some brown sugar sometimes. But really digging them.
Actually, I went to a shop probably 6 months ago that was clearing out. They had probably 3 or 4 different Vitolas of the K.A. Kendall stuff, or the 724 stuff, and I cleared them out, man. I mean, I must have bought 50 cigars from him. I like 30-40% of retail price. They were just getting rid of them. Most of them were 50%, but I mean, there were some that were way down there. I mean, $2 a cigar, $3 a cigar.
Holy cow!
How can you not take advantage of that? So I think I might have 5 left. I went through a lot of those before Christmas.
Yeah, I mean the Robusto is kind of an odd selection, but I really like the Robusto and the Lanceros and those a lot.
I had a lot of I would call it maybe a little bit of an elongated Toro, probably 6.5 by 50, cedar wrapped. I had a bunch of those. Those are pretty good. I think those were like the $3 ones. Pretty good ones.
What have you been smoking this week? That kind of wraps up my list.
Well, I've had 2 other cigars this week besides what we've had for the show, and the one that I really want to talk about is it's an old favorite. I mean, anybody who's had one has been a fan of it. I am positive of it. It's the Padron 1926. These are just epic cigars. I mean, what more can you really say? Honestly, just spectacular construction. They last a while. Spectacular, epic flavors. I mean, they tend to just not be included in people's discussions of favorite cigars, and it's got to only be because of their price. Now, I know that they definitely are expensive, no doubt, but they're always available. They never disappoint, and yeah, okay. I mean, they're expensive, but why don't you just smoke less often? Smoke better. This is a cigar that if you had one cigar a week and it was this instead of, 2 $9 cigars, I can almost guarantee this is going to give you more enjoyment out of that one experience, and it's just going to be epic. I don't know. I absolutely dig these sticks. I really, really do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. I guess I fall into that group of folks that don't smoke them all that often, but I can't say that I've ever had a bad experience with them.
No, I mean, I can remember, after the 26s came out. When the heck did the 26s come out? 2004, I think. Yeah, I think 2004 sounds about right. I bought a box of those, and at 24, I was in 2004, I was a 23 or 24-year-old, and I was in my first full-time job, didn't really have that much money, but I decided that I was going to buy a box of these things because I knew that they were just that good, and they were. Every single one of them was perfect, and every single one I've had since has been perfect. It's not something that I think people should overlook. You can always count on these sticks.
Yep, absolutely.
So the other one that I had, I'm not going to delve into too deeply, but it was a test blend cigar, and I love doing that. It's much like the unbanded tonight. You're smoking a cigar just to smoke a cigar, to be honest with it, to not be influenced by anything besides the flavor, to tell somebody this is worth your time or this is not worth your time, or you need to do something different, or don't do anything. You've hit a home run. And I'll say that this cigar that I had was not a home run. It was probably a stand-up triple. It was just absolutely brilliant. Reminded me a lot of, 5 years ago now, probably 5, 6 years ago, Granabano came out with a cigar called the Tres Siglos, Three Siglos. It's since been rebranded. I don't know what the name of the front mark is now. There was some trademark thing, but this cigar reminded me a lot of that, with a little bit of extra sweetness to it, a little bit more complex woody flavors, and just a great marriage of hard and soft, sweet and savory. A really, really great smoke. It was a sublime size, a sublimus size. I think 6 1/8 or 6 1/4 by 54. And man, it just smoked forever and ever and ever. 2.5 hours. Great experience. It's not available, but man, if it ever is, I'll be shouting from the heavens for everybody to pick it up. It's not only was it a good experience or an enjoyable experience, but it was a good experience to be able to just concentrate on a cigar as a cigar. This was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun thing. Well, we mentioned it last week that we had some listener submitted comments about pipe smoking that we just didn't have the time to get to because of the epic show that we recorded with Bob and Dale. But I think tonight would be a great time to kind of do the conversation some justice. What do you say?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let me talk with a cigar in my mouth. Yeah, we got an email from Stephen. Durow or Durow. I apologize, Stephen. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. I guess it matters if it's French or German. And about pipes. He said he was also interested in having a segment on pipes or pipe tobacco, that he primarily smokes cigars, but would like to learn more about techniques and tobaccos so he could enjoy his pipes as well. And we have a few notes here about his email that we kind of broke it down a little bit, and we'll kind of briefly touch on them. I think each one of his points could be turned into a good segment at some point, but just to hit on them tonight. Some of the things he mentioned he would like to see as discussion items. The first one was lighting or keeping a pipe lit, and that is one of the toughest things to get under your belt when you're learning to smoke a pipe. And it actually chases a lot of people away from the pipe because it gets to be a hassle when you're first trying to pick up the hobby, trying to go back and light that thing every couple of minutes, it seems like, and you burn through 3 boxes of matches trying to smoke a bowl of tobacco, and it's really a bother. And there's just no quick, easy way to get around it but to practice. And I put in the notes, practice, practice, practice. One of the tougher things to pick up is the cadence is a little different than with cigars. You have to pay a little more attention, and you think it's almost cumbersome when you're first getting into pipes to try to get used to that cadence, to get used to the smoking and paying more attention. But one day you'll look up and realize you don't pay attention at all anymore. It's just part of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
But there's a really delicate balance there that it's hard to focus on that and get that developed until you're just used to doing it, until it's just second nature. And as a side note, not to jump off on a rat hole, but it's kind of the same thing with all the little stuff you end up carrying around with you when you smoke a pipe. You got a tamp or maybe a reamer and different lighters or matches and a pouch and a tobacco pouch and a pipe sock or whatever to carry your pipe in. And all that, you look at that and think, I'm not going to carry all that crap in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll learn what you like and don't like. You can combine certain tools, and that's another thing that, and once you just get your sea legs with it, it just becomes second nature. But back to the lighting and keeping lit, like I said, there's a delicate balance there. If you're smoking a little too slow, it's going to constantly go out. If you smoke too fast, you will experience what's known as tongue bite, and which is just a miserable thing. And that can happen for a number of reasons. But smoking your pipe too fast will just do it quickly. And what's probably happening is, if you're smoking an inexpensive drugstore kind of grade pipe tobacco, they usually lace that with PG, which is propylene glycol, which is not any reason for concern. That's the same thing. It's a preservative that's found in a lot of the food you eat every day. But and it's also the same thing in the old passive humidification, the foam and whatnot in your humidors. They put that on those cheaper tobaccos because sometimes they sit on the shelf forever and ever, and it keeps them from drying out. But when you're smoking a pipe, if you're smoking a blend that has a lot of PG in it, as you smoke that thing down, it's going to kind of accumulate in the bottom of or in the heel of the pipe, and you get that and some moisture generated by smoking a little too fast in the bottom of your pipe. As the heat passes over that, it generates steam that's going to come right up the stem of the pipe and across your tongue, and steam is going to burn your tongue, and that's going to leave you with almost an inability to taste anything for the next couple of days, and it's painful at first, and the pain doesn't last, but it's just awful when you can't taste anything. My life revolves around taste. I love to eat. I love to have cigars and pipes, and when I can't taste, I'm just, not that I'm ever fun to be around, but I'm really not fun to be around.
I at the first cigar store that I just grew passionate about tobacco every time I went there. The owner taught me when I was starting to get into pipes, and I admit, I was one of those trendy pipe guys trendy nerd pipe guys who said, maybe pipes are cool after I saw and read the Lord of the Rings stories. So you can start making fun of me there, but that was now 12 years ago when I first started getting into pipes a little bit. And what he said was, he explained to me that packing a pipe to keep it lit, it was 3 steps. You would pack it in 3 different stages. Fill your bowl, and in the first stage, fill the bowl with your tobacco, or with as much as you'd like to smoke, because you could fill half a bowl and only smoke half as long if you'd like. But the first time you pack the tobacco down, pack it down like you're a child. Not very strong, perhaps not very consistent or even. Just give it a pat to get it pressed down there into the bowl. Second time you put tobacco in, you fill it up to your desired amount, and you pack it down like you're that child's mother, with a little bit more diligence and consistency, but not nearly, and strength, but not nearly a lot of strength. And then the third time, you come in like you're the father. You put your tobacco, you fill your bowl again, and then you pack it down with some strength as the strongest that you've pushed it down. The goal isn't to make it impossible to, draw air through the stem of the pipe, but the idea is to progressively layer that tobacco in, and so you're essentially building different components or areas of the tobacco in the bowl that can light. And one of the things that I noticed when I was consistent with this, and I haven't lit a pipe in a long time, so I guarantee I'm going to fumble when I do it next. But one of the things that really did allow me to have a little bit more flexibility in that cadence that you talk about was getting a good pack on that pipe. If I had that bowl packed properly, I could leave it sit for a minute, and I felt like it wasn't going to go out. It was something where it would smolder and it would be ready when I was ready. But if I had a poor pack, I needed to smoke every 20 seconds, and I just felt like I would get that tongue bite, or I wasn't getting the flavors that I wanted. It was almost like smoking a cigar that had an incredibly loose draw. You just didn't get all that was available for you. And I'm by no means a good pipe smoker. I'm not dedicated at all. I don't even consider myself to be a pipe smoker. I just know that I am intrigued by what the tobacco flavor, what the flavors are available in the tobacco. I don't know if you have a different theory on packing or what, but
no, there's a number of different methods for packing a bowl of tobacco out there. The one you described is the one I remember way back in the day in the little flyer that my tobacconist back in Tennessee would hand out when you bought a new pipe. There's that. There's some people that subscribe to a method where you you loosely fill the bowl up to the top, and kind of exactly what you're describing. You fill it to the top, you tamp it down, and usually it's better when you're packing to use your thumb rather than the tamper, and push it down to about half a bowl, and then you loosely fill it to the top again, back down to 3/4, and then you just put a little on top and just a final little bit of a tamp on there. And there was a guy in Germany came up with a method he called the Frank method, where he took a pinch of tobacco in 4 of his fingers that was kind of like the size of the bowl he was packing, and rather than tamping it or pushing it into the bowl, he would compress it around the edges until it would just slide down into the bowl until it was filled, and that works well. And then you got things like flake cut tobacco. Some of the Virginia tobaccos come in flakes, and they're like a wafer, maybe a millimeter thick, and anywhere from 1 inch by 4 inches to 2 inches by 8 inches, and you just fold. And especially if it's a windy day, wind wreaks havoc with the pipe, and so flakes are really good for windy days because you can fold that flake and stuff it in there, and it burns very, very slowly in comparison when it's in a flake. So the wind will basically do the work of keeping the pipe lit. Whereas if you just have a typical, ribbon cut pipe tobacco, the wind blowing across the top of that bowl is going to incinerate your tongue. It's going to be burning so much more brightly and hot than you would normally experience in still conditions.
It's actually really neat. I had never heard of that Frank method before. Sounds like it actually might be a better way of being able to kind of get, I don't know, have some feel. You do it 3 or 4 times, the density that it's supposed to be just in your fingers, and you don't even have to worry about getting it packed in there. You'll know what it is before you even get it in there. Yep, this is right. I'm set up well.
Yeah, and if you got a little too much when you're doing it that way, you just knock it off the top. Not a big deal.
So this next comment to me is really an interesting one, talking about how people who perhaps are much more akin to being smokers of cigars might, I don't know, be more adventurous with a pipe if you can kind of get cigar type of flavors, or let's just say tobaccos that would mirror what you'd get in a cigar in a pipe. I think that this would be a really unique thing to try, and you've got a lot of good information here.
Yeah, he asked about tobaccos that try to most mirror cigar tobaccos, and I called that an elusive animal. And the reason I said that is I've tried, I couldn't tell you how many different blends that feature or showcase a particular bit of tobacco that you would find in cigars, or they even call it a cigar blend. McClellan makes a couple of blends, a Maduro and a natural version of one they call Dominican Glory. Greg Pease, which is just an epic pipe tobacco blender. I can't tell you how much I love the blends he creates. He has one called Robusto, and they use cigar leaf, but it's not going to be, you're not going to be confused and think you have a cigar in your mouth. I have yet to find one that very closely matches or mates up with what I find in a cigar. There was one several years ago that I liked a lot and was more akin to that, but it's now gone. One of the key components in it was that Syrian Latakia that burned up in a fire, a warehouse fire, and so they couldn't make that blend anymore. And it was made by Cornell and Deal, a company in North Carolina, and it was called Billiard Room, and it was just, man, it was a fantastic pipe tobacco. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I've kind of always been intrigued by this thought, and the first reason, this idea of pipe tobaccos that most mirror cigar tobaccos, I kind of just thought, well, gee, that's interesting. I mean, you think of people in history, cigar smokers in history. It wasn't terribly uncommon for some famous cigar smokers to smoke a cigar with a cigar holder. Mm-hmm. And so I've on numerous occasions had the idea, well, what if you took a cigar and stuffed it into a pipe so that way it created a seal around the bowl where the head of the cigar was inserted in there? And I almost thought, you know, you'd look like you were smoking a little chimney. I wonder if something like that would be possible.
I have done that on many.
Oh, there you go.
I have an old meerschaum pipe that it's a Labrador, a dog's head with a duck in its mouth, actually, and that thing fits perfectly with Don Carlos No. 3, one of my favorite cigars. I have done that a lot, and there's actually a picture floating around of me on the internet somewhere doing that with a different pipe because my wife was making fun of me one day. But you know, there's no reason not to. They actually, you know, there are cigar holders. What you're talking about, the little kind of like a little 2-inch mouthpiece made to fit a certain ring gauge cigar. But 100 years ago, cheroots. Are you familiar with the word cheroot?
Yeah, yeah.
There were cheroot holders, which were little. They look like a pipe, but rather than the bowl turning and going vertical, it just kind of went upward a little bit toward the end. It kind of flared at the end, but didn't really go vertical. It just kind of went off at a, you know, maybe a 30-degree angle. They were made to hold cheroots, and that's just how people smoked them. You know, but my advice here for Stephen was just not to go into a pipe tobacco, even if it's marketed as a cigar blend, with the expectation that it's going to duplicate, you know, the experience of smoking a cigar. You know, and if I want a cigar, I have a cigar. If I want a pipe, I have a pipe. I'm a little different than the majority of pipe smokers out there. I don't smoke, or very rarely. And when I say very rarely, I mean once in years, I will pull out a typical aromatic blend of what you think of as pipe tobacco that's heavily flavored to be cherry or amaretto or anything like that. Most of the blends that I do smoke are much more akin to cigars in the types of tobacco they use. And they, for the most part, the flavoring doesn't come from an added flavor. It comes from the process that's used to cure the tobacco or to dry the tobacco. And you know, the English blend, some of the Oriental varietals are, you know, they're harvested and they're dried over these little smoldering fires of various different herbs and spices and woods and bushes and trees for whatever part of the world they come from. And I absolutely love the smoky, you know, deep, dark flavors that you can get in some of those blends. And so I'm no longer very familiar with a lot of the aromatic blends out there, but the things I do smoke are just by definition or by chance or whatever more akin to a cigar, although they're not going to be a cigar.
Well, for those of you who are listening to this and as curious as I am if it would be possible to find that picture of Kip with a cigar poking out of a pipe, I'm on page 9 or something on a Google search for Kip pipe cigar, and I can't quite find it. So if you find it, definitely shoot that to me in an email. I would be very interested in seeing that.
It's around.
I do think I found a rather interesting photo of you with what looks like a python.
No, that is actually a diamondback rattlesnake. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, is that why you look scared to death?
Several months ago, that was outside my patio door.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I would be scared to death.
My dog I have a little tiny beagle, just kind of was going nuts one day, and I stepped out to tell her to be quiet, and I opened the patio door, and that thing was sitting there like literally 6 inches from where I was, and I didn't like that. And so I went around to the other patio door and let the dog in there so she didn't get taken out. And I went into the garage and got a shovel and a rake, and I thought I was going to take that thing on. And I came out there, and it had kind of moved off and was off the sidewalk at the time. And I walked out the door, and it, just like in the movies, the thing turned around and came back about a foot and was looking at me and started rattling. I no longer appreciated the reach I had with a shovel, and So I just went back in and got a rifle at that point.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was around here. We've had a couple of rattlesnakes over the years, but they're usually the little guys, the little pygmies. But that was a diamondback, and it just barely broke 4 feet long. But of course, when I came out the door, I estimated it to be about 800 feet long.
So you've rewritten the old "don't bring a knife to a gunfight" by "don't bring a rattlesnake to a rifle fight."
Exactly.
Or a shovel to a rifle fight. That's pretty funny. Well, I have still continued to search for this embarrassing photo of you with a pipe and a cigar, and I can't find it. So somebody else outwit me on this internet searching and make my day and send it over.
I would say it's probably on my wife's Facebook page, if nowhere else. Who knows? She posted it online.
Well, anyways, we've got a show to do. I shouldn't keep looking for crazy things like that.
Rat hose.
Yeah. Well, this next one here, this next comment here, as I speak with a cigar in my mouth, is an interesting one, and I'm not sure we'll be able to do too much justice to it. But Steven says he's getting kind of a consistent plastic flavor at times when he's smoking a pipe, and he doesn't think that it is actually caused by his pipe itself, because he's got a pretty quality Casano Briar pipe. But is there a tobacco that would give this plastic taste, is what he's questioning. And man, oh man, I just can't even imagine that would be the case.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what he has going on there. I guess I wasn't clear on what he meant by plastic flavor. But there's a couple of things that kind of come to mind that can make that type of flavor, that ashy kind of hot taste, that I can only imagine what he's communicating there. And one is what I mentioned earlier, the propylene glycol. Some people will never detect that as a flavor. Others will, as it accumulates in a bowl and you're burning that off. It has kind of an acrid, searing, kind of ashy taste to it, and it's one of those things. Like I said, some people never even notice it, and others are completely turned off by it. And the other thing that came to mind was tobacco that is the polar opposite of what I was just talking about. If it's too dry, if your tobacco is dry, it will burn. I'm saying burns hot. It combusts at the same temperature, but it feels hotter when you're smoking it, and it will have that off taste, that ashy, kind of harsh flavor. But I also wanted to temper that comment with the fact that you don't need to keep your pipe tobacco at the same humidity as your cigars. If you keep pipe tobacco at 70% or 65% relative humidity, it's not going to stay lit for the world. It's just going to be too wet.
That's probably a really good point, especially because I imagine the vast majority of us who are listening with a little bit of an intrigued ear are much more akin to being a cigar smoker than a pipe smoker. So I appreciate that quick tip.
Yeah. So I don't, what was his last? Oh, his last comment was actually unrelated to pipes. He said we had mentioned Candela wrappers on cigars, and he was recommending that I try the Camacho Candela, which uses the same filler as the Corojo, and just thought I might enjoy that one. And I don't know that I've ever had one, but like I said, I will always pick one up just for novelty alone when I come across them. So I'm absolutely willing to give that a try.
Well, I guess it's it's one of those things. If you're somebody who's out there and willing to experience what you can experience with a cigar and tobacco, I mean, why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the name of the game is experimentation.
Well, Mr. Officer Paul has what you've. I'll just let you do the introduction. Why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, Officer Paul. Going back, another friend and cohort from the Dog Watch days sent me something this week, which was actually really neat. I don't know if he just knows my personality or what. He included this little note that he saw these and thought of me, and he sent it to me and another guy, it looks like. It says, to the untrained eye, they're simply power pole insulators, but to the trained eye, they're redneck cigar wrists. And I don't know if I can see this thing. It is an insulator off a power pole, and it does make a perfect little cigar holder, right?
Redneck cigar holder, amen.
That thing has instantly earned a place on my patio table. I love
it. Oh, that's great.
Use that all afternoon when it can.
I tend to use just about whatever's within my reach, and that's to light, to cut, to hold the cigar. So I have to say, I might not be from below the Mason-Dixon line, but I certainly have an appreciation for that. Good times. It's always fun to kind of get a little bit of a goofy bit of cigardom in there.
Yeah, man, I love that thing. That was kind of right up my alley.
Well, the next item that I wanted to add here, it's different from what we've done thus far. This kind of, other areas or the what else, or I guess other aspects of tobaccodom that you're interested in. I just kind of wanted to share some kind of useful tips that if I was someone who was looking for just some very basic things that you might need as a cigar smoker. These are really useful, very reasonably priced suggestions, and it's some stuff that I've just come across lately. First of all, I'm sure that they're not the highest quality products out there in the world, but it's pretty hard to beat a lifetime guarantee when you're talking about a lighter. And specifically what I want to kind of let people know about are Jetline lighters. Some of them that have kind of a plastic. They've got options of 2, 3, or 4 flame torches and a lifetime guarantee. I mean, they're a fraction of the price of the Zycar models that have a similar warranty. And it just, I don't know, it just kind of, it just dawned on me, like, this is absolutely the type of thing that people would be interested in. I mean, $10, $15 for a lighter that it's going to fit in your pocket, be comfortable, multiple torches, and you never have to buy another lighter if you don't lose it.
And you said Jet Line, not Jet Light.
Correct, Jet Line, Line. I mean, it's just kind of a no-brainer. If I wasn't aware of them, I'd want somebody to tell me about them. So, for all of you guys who are out there, visit a local tobacconist. Maybe they'll have some. Give them a buy. Make sure that the tobacconist will honor that lifetime. And the funny thing is, geez, if you just get it scratched up in your pocket, there's no terms to the warranty. If you just want to replace it, my understanding is you just go back. This one doesn't look like when I bought it. I want to exchange it. Done. Wow. No questions asked. It's pretty crazy.
Cool. There's also a Jet Light made by Ronson that you can get these things for $3 at Walmart, actually. And I have taken to carrying those when we are flying anywhere, because if they get confiscated, I'm not going to cry about it.
Yeah, this is definitely Jetline, Line. I'm looking at some photos of the products here. Jetline Pocket Torch. I mean, you'll see them. They've got a more common design. It looks like a knockoff of the Blazer lighters with the half-sphere base. But these are all rectangular. They come in chrome, matte black, and then, like I said, kind of the funky, plasticky reds and yellows and junk if you want to go for that. But I mean, really, really priced right when it comes to a product you can use on a daily basis as a cigar smoker.
Cool.
The next one is, and this does not apply to me because I am not a fan of the V-cut, but I have to say I probably lean away from a V-cut because I've had so many bad cuts over the years when trying to do it. But Zycar has really got a beautiful metal V-cutter that's out now. They're a little pricey. They're $50, but it's a really unique blade design. It's a hollow-backed blade design with kind of a unique. The break on the steel itself is very unique. It gives a lot of rigidity. The case itself has got some metallic. It feels metallic. It's got a nice weight to it without being too large in your pocket or too heavy to where it's going to pull your pants down. And it's, Zykar's good name. You put those things together, a great cut, a well-known, well-respected company, and the price tag again being a little high, $50, but for a good cut, something that's not going to tear your cigar apart. I mean, geez, if it doesn't ruin $5, $10 cigars, it's paid for itself,
Yeah.
So something to think about, I guess, for those of you who like the V and are always looking for that reliable one. So.
Can you see that picture of me right now?
Let me transfer over. Hold on, I'm on the show notes, not the screen. There it is.
Yeah, I'm screen sharing the picture there. That I can't even tell what cigar that is. that pipe right there is actually over 100 years old. That is an ancient pipe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. It's just goofy looking.
That's funny. Well, that's me.
Well, yeah, Well, what do you say we, I don't know if you're done with this unbanded, but I'm getting pretty darn close. I got maybe 1.25 inches or so left.
Yeah, that's kind of where I got to, and I have put it down. It turned a little bit on me again, a little ashy, a little, not really harsh, just so dry that it felt like I had gotten a mouthful of ash almost.
Well, I have to say, this one is certainly finishing a lot better than the last, and it might be because I'm not smoking it as often. I've had to relight 2 or 3 times here, and I've purged as well. But the cigar is not, it's not burning too slowly. It's probably a typical Robusto for me, at least in burn time. That kind of, hour and a half-ish. But I definitely do still get that extreme palate coating, tongue coating, much more than a normal cigar, and I don't like that. It's too much for me. But the flavors that came from this cigar, I mean, I had mentioned kind of a bready, nutmeggy, sweet, tropical spice or baking spice. The vanilla kind of playing in and out there. Predominantly Nicaraguan flavors with perhaps some Dominican influence for me, and as we talked about, that Ecuadorian wrapper, perhaps. If I had to say something that this reminded me of, I think, maybe an Airbender product, but I don't think that an Airbender even comes in this size, and I know that that's not predominantly Nicaraguan tobacco, so I'm not necessarily going to lean on that. It's just some of the flavors that were there, and the body reminded me or made me recall that cigar. But, if I had to say whether I had it before, I don't know if I would say that I had. I've probably had things similar in that I think, again, this is more of that new school Nicaraguan, I don't want to say style, but I think you kind of know what I mean if I use that word. But good cigar. Not a great cigar. There's some things that I wish were different, but, I'm still smoking it, so that should say something.
Yeah, and I have to also say this one was much better than the first one I had. Although it did turn a little toward the end, I got my money's worth out of the cigar.
Cool.
So but at the same time, they were roughly $6.50 a piece. Just kind of guessing by the tally I got from the lady running the cash register. For that price, I can get an 858 Maduro and save a couple of bucks, or I can almost get a Don Carlos for that.
Yeah.
Going back to my Fuente fanaticism.
Like what you know well, huh?
Or are we ready to tear this open?
Yeah, why not be embarrassed?
Am I making enough noise with it?
Well, you're certainly letting us know that you're legitimately ripping something.
Good grief. It is the Romeo, or Romeo y Julieta.
Interesting.
I have had one of these back when they first came out, but I didn't put. I would not have guessed. Now, I'm anxious to see what the components are. Actually,
I'm interested in that because I didn't make a complete fool of myself. That is a newer cigar. It's probably Unless that's a reblended version of some of the existing Romeo, that's something that's just within a year, right?
Yeah, right about a year.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I seem to remember that after last Christmas, but um, unique for me. I would say I would reach for that over a lot of the other Romeos that I've had in the past.
Okay, you want to know the components?
Yeah, why don't you hit me with that?
The wrapper is a select dark Ecuadorian Habano seed. So we were spot on with the Ecuador anyway. The binder is Dominican Olor, and filler is a unique blend of specially selected Dominican Piloto and Olor tobacco.
That's
So
unique.
Dominican, Ecuadorian.
Wow, I would have thought there was definitely more Nicaraguan in this. It definitely lines up with, as I had said, some of those more new school Nicaraguan flavors that have emerged in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And actually, just drawing a little bit more of a comparison with your Nicaraguan comment, I like the new Perla Del Mar, that J.C. Newman we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I would take that over this every time, but that cigar has that kind of Nicaraguan flavor you're talking about. Exactly. And I can make the connection in my mind that I know what you're talking about by that cigar in comparison to this one.
It's I gotta say that's one of the better releases from that rather large conglomerate manufacturer.
Yeah, after me talking about him last week.
Well, I don't think anybody is going to hold you to that.
But I do have to say, even I didn't talk bad about him last week. The large majority of what they make doesn't fall into my my sweet spot, my wheelhouse, as Dale would say. Although I did mention the one thing that I do like from them was the Romeo Vintage. I like those pretty well.
This is it's been an interesting experience and exactly what I want out of these unbandeds. You get a little bit humbled, you gain some education, you can look at some things and realize, hey, maybe I'm not a complete fool. But I just love the fact that you kind of, well, I'll put it this way. I would never go into a cigar store and pick that up. I don't smoke enough to want to just smoke a cigar that's new just because it's new. I'd rather go for things that I know are in my wheelhouse. Again, that idea of I'm going to smoke what I know I like.
And this is one thing we're a little different in. I will try everything that comes down the pike at least twice.
Well, pardon me. I guess maybe I shouldn't be that extreme with it. I'll certainly try new cigars. It's just if I'm going into a shop and it's just to smoke a cigar, to enjoy it, to be around the camaraderie of things, I'll smoke something and I'll buy something that I'm familiar with or that I know I'm going to enjoy. But I'll certainly reach out and try to expand my horizons too.
Yeah, same here. And when I'm in a shop and just hanging out with a group of other guys having a cigar, I will do the same thing. I'll reach for something I know I'm going to like. But I usually try new things when I have a little more attention to pay to the cigar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty good. I'm probably down at about an inch now, and I'm getting some kind of unique tea flavors, but very distinctly like a chai tea.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a chai latte with a little bit of a milky flavor to it too. And that I did not pick up at all out of the first cigar because I didn't smoke it down this far. But this one, I can put my fingers right, an eighth of an inch or so, quarter inch just below the burn line, and it's not too hot. I think I've done well enough to be able to treat the cigar right so it'll treat me right. But that's a very unique flavor to me. I did not get that at all out of the first run.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we are pushing up the 2-hour mark here.
It never fails.
Yeah, we're basically at the end of the show notes. Well, what do you know?
Well done. We thought this might be a pretty short show today, but just goes to show you, we can ramble with the best of them.
A couple of epic rat hoes later, and we're there.
It's always a good time. Well, next week I don't know if we're going to get into it. Well, yes, I do. I'm sure we're going to get into a couple more rat holes, but we've also got one heck of a cigar of the week that I'm really excited about sharing with everybody. This is back onto my recommendation, one of my faves, and it is the 2005 Ramoniones Eminencia. This was a cigar that was released solely for Switzerland, and if I had to say my absolute favorite cigar that I have a box of, this is in the discussion. You know, it probably is going to be one of 3 or 4 boxes, depending on what day of the week it is, but this one's going to be in there. So
Cool.
I love this bad boy, and I hope that you guys like it, like hearing about it. And Kip, I hope you like smoking it.
I'm excited about it. I am not absolutely not an expert with Cuban cigars in any capacity. But the one name that keeps popping up, people say, "Well, you got to try this. You got to try this." Is Ramon Iones, and I have never had one.
Oh man, I didn't know that. Wow. Well, I think we've got 3 of my selections are Ramoniones, so we'll give you a bit of a varied education here, and this is a good foray into the brand.
At the very least, a lot of people that know what I like to smoke have recommended that name. Yeah, so we'll see.
Well, if nothing else, it'll be nice to get your opinion.
Yeah. And let's see. Don't forget the giveaway. We're gonna pull that name out next week. Have that ready for the show. All you got to do is send me an email, kip@thecigarme.com. Any kind of email. Just say something. Don't send me a blank letter.
Well, I guess you should remind those of the listeners who perhaps forgot what this giveaway is for, how epic it is. Tell them what they're going to get.
Absolutely.
Or what they have the chance to win.
Yeah, this is a throwback to our first show when we featured the Sun-Grown 858 from Arturo Fuente. And what we're giving away is a 5-pack. It's an 858 of each of the different, the 5 wrappers that come on that cigar, as well as a nice shiny new Cigar Me mug and a screw pop tool, a little combination bottle opener cigar punch that we tried out recently.
Very nice. And I guess a good reminder for everybody, next week is our live broadcast show, 9 p.m. Eastern at cigarfederation.com. You can see the live video feed, listen to the show, participate in the chat. There's always a lively group of guys who give us their Friday night and have really made that a pretty fun experience. I've enjoyed kind of the live feed with those guys, harassing us, joking about what we're saying, or going down rat holes of their own. It can even influence what we talk about on the show. That's always good for me.
Yeah, the rat holes spawn their own rat holes with the chat room going.
Yeah, exactly.
And like always, if you have a suggestion or a submission, you can for an unbanded, you can email those in to us. Actually, they don't come to us. You can email it to info@thecigarme.com. That goes to my wife, who will source them. And by the way, she has now done so with the first one we got. Had a friend of mine pick those up for me this week, so I'll be getting those up to you, Craig.
Awesome.
And we thank our hosts who provide the platform for us to put out the live show. And if you haven't checked out cigarfederation.com, you need to hop on over there and give that a look over. It's a neat little site. It's actually not so little anymore. There's hundreds of members now. It's a social networking site. It's all cigar related. All the content is cigar stuff. It's a nice, friendly place to hang out. You won't see too many flame wars and whatnot going over there. It's just a great place and a great group of guys that put that on, and we thank them for letting us use some of their resources.
Well, yeah, I mean, and kind of to bookend that Cigar Federation talk, guys, get out there and find Ezra Zion cigars. It's the cigar that's manufactured from the Three Stooges who bring you cigarfederation.com. And there's some great smokes. Holy crap. I have been sampling some of those, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed. So check those out. Ezra Zion cigars. You're gonna love them. I guarantee it. Well, and next I'll take this one here because I want to give myself a shameless plug, but I also want to do you justice. Also, guys, if you're gonna take the time to listen to anything that we say, be sure to head to thecigarme.com. That's my illustrious co-host's cigar blog, where he talks about all things cigars, reviews a lot of great cigars, and not just great cigars. We'll give an honest review for whatever he's smoking on there, and he's got great insight. It's a great resource for you to go to kind of get a good introduction to what premium cigars and the Brotherhood is about. That's thecigarme.com. THECIGAR, the word cigar, and then MY, cigarme.com. And I've got my accompanying epilogue reviews to a few of the cigars that I've smoked here on the show if you want to get a little bit more detailed info about what my thoughts are. And I know, Kip, you've got some reviews on there specifically related to what we've smoked on the show as well. My epilogue review for tonight's Unbanded will be up probably in the next couple days. Kip, I'll get you that final version over maybe even tonight, depending on what time it is. I don't have a clock by me, but that's something where I strongly recommend you guys head to thecigarme.com.
All right, I think that kind of wraps up. If you guys want to get in touch with us, make a comment, compliment, insult, question, whatever you'd like to send us, you can get Craig at thecigarme.com, and you can reach me at Kip at thecigarme.com. And there's various other ways you can get in touch with us through Facebook and Twitter and all that. And mine are across the top of the blog there, thecigarme.com. And I will add Craig somewhere in there this week so you can find all his contact information too.
Yeah, do that. And I know I'm specifically trying to have more of a presence on Twitter. I'll post things not just related to cigars, but related to everything in life. I love spreading the good word and having a little bit of fun, and some jokes, and reposting some other people's good information. And you can find me at Craig S. Schneider, at Craig S. Schneider on Twitter. It's Craig Schneider on Facebook, blah, blah, blah. You can look me up. You'll see me standing there with a cigar in my hand and my wife on my side. And SigFed handles, same sort of thing. You can find us there as well. So be sure to check us out. We'd love to hear from you. Love to talk to you. And love to find out what you think of the show, as always. So as Kip had said, I most certainly am up for any suggestions you want to share and how we can make the show better. So thanks for that. I'll take one last moment here and dedicate tonight's show. Who's tonight's show going out to? I had written it down and I don't see it now. Well, that's all right. I can wing it. Tonight's show I'm going to send out to my buddy Greg. I haven't really talked to Greg very much recently. But he was the owner of the first shop and one of the reasons why I've become so passionate about cigars. So, Greg, I hold you responsible for this podcast. Good night, everybody. Kip, unless you got anything else to add, I'll close us out here.
Go for it.
Well, gents, ladies, we appreciate you listening. Hope you join us next week for that live show, 9 o'clock Eastern. And be well. Have yourself a great week. Good night, everybody.